Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Jane here. So on this video I'll be showing us how to draft a shirt pattern. I would have drafted on my fabric, but you all know that I love to draft on paper before transferring onto my fabric. Okay, so stick with me. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you as well. So I'll be showing us how to draft a shirt pattern very quickly. We're going to be using this pattern to make a two-piece later on, and that black material is the fabric that I'm using. Okay, so you already know my tools I use in drafting. This is my pattern paper. Now already on my pattern paper I've marked out 2 inches extension. This is for the button plackets. So you all know that when you draft a shirt pattern, or when you have a shirt, you know that it has a button in front, and this extension is for the button placket. So what I've done here, after marking out this 2-inch extension, is to fold it in, and then we are going to continue with our measurements. So you'll be needing your shoulder measurements, your bust, the waist, and the hip. Also, you'll be needing the length of your shirt. So wherever you want your shirt to stop, the length of your shirt, go ahead and do that. Now, back to my paper. From the top, I've marked out a shoulder line, border for the shoulder. And from there, I went on to mark out the length of my shirt. So for the length of the shirt, I'm making use of 26 inches. So depending on how long you want yours to be, you can go ahead and do that. So 26 inches is what I have marked out for the length of my shirt. I went ahead to mark that out on the paper. Please remember that you're taking all of your measurement from this folded edge, so you're drafting the front first. Now going back to your shoulder line, I'm going to take my shoulder divided by 2. Now, because this is a shirt pattern, I'm going to expand the measurement. So what I mean by expanding the measurement, I'm going to be adding extra inches to it. So on the shoulder, I had 7.5 for my shoulder. I added extra half an inch to make it 8 inches. Yes, because you need it to be comfortable. Now for the neck opening, I used 2.5 inch for the neck opening at the shoulder line, and then I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. Okay, so back to my shoulder line, I placed my tape there to get the bust measurement. That's the distance from the shoulder to the bust. I have 10 inches from the shoulder to the bust. Then I will go ahead and mark that across the paper. Alright, so when you're done with this, the next line to get will be the waistline. So for some of you who say I don't label my pattern, sorry, it's a habit that I've sort of gotten used to, but if you follow the video carefully, you would know what each line is, because I take my time to explain. So now this next line is the waistline. So you place your tape at the shoulder line, and you're going to get your waist measurement, the distance from your shoulder to your waist, that I've also marked out. So from that point now, I'm going to go back to my armhole line. I'm going to take my armhole line, which is 8 inches. And then what I'm doing is to ensure that my shoulder measurement is accurate at towards the bust line, so we can bring down the armhole line. And from there, we will now connect it outward to create the chest line. So now this is done. This is just your basic bodice. This pattern will not have a dart. So back to the armhole line, I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch for the armhole depth, okay? And then you go back to your chest line. You're going to take 1/4 of your bust circumference. Because this is a shirt, and you know it has a button in front, you need to have extra, so that when you make your shirt and you put on your button, it doesn't open up on that chest area. So what I've done for my bust area is to add extra 2 inches to it. So I had 9 inches for my bust measurement. I added extra 2 inches to make it 11. Okay, I want it to be a free shirt, so I added extra 2 inches to make it 11 at the chest line. Then I connected the armhole to that point. Now going back to the waist, my waist is 30 divided by 4. I had 7.5. I added extra 2 inches to it as well. Now you can skip the waist if you don't want to have the body contour towards that area, but I just wanted to have some fitting at the same time, have it loose. That is why I went with the waist measurement. But if you don't want that, you can just mark out a straight line from your chest down to your hip. So for my hip, I did the same thing, quarter of my hip circumference plus extra 2 inches to it. So now I'm connecting from the chest line to the hip, to the waist, from the waist down to the hip. Okay, so basically that's it. We are done with the pattern. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out my shoulder slope at the top. So remember, we took 1 inch for the shoulder slope at the shoulder line, so I'm going to go connect that 1 inch there. Now for the depth of the neck, I'm going to use 3 inches for the depth of the neck of the front. So I remember I said I used 2.5 inch for the neck opening, and for the depth of the neck, I'm going to be using 3 inches. So what I've done here is to mark out 3 inches. I created a mini box at that area, and then I connected it. I just squared up the lines to create a mini box at that corner. Then I used my armhole curve to create the curve for the neck, and basically that's it for the neckline. So you're done with the neck depth after drafting that out. So I'm going to be adding my stitching allowances, and then I'm going to modify the hem of this top. So I'm going to be adding 1 inch for stitching at the chest line, the waist, and also the hip line. I added 1 inch towards that area, and then towards the armhole I added extra half an inch towards the armhole. Okay, and for the shoulder line, I'm not going to be adding any stitching allowance yet because we are going to modify that later on. Okay, so I will be adding half inch to the armhole, and for the shoulder we are not going to be adding any stitching allowance there. Now towards the hemline, that's the hip line, I'm going to come up by 1 inch just to give it a slight curve. We don't want our shirt pointed towards that area, so I went up by 1 inch at the hip line, then I connected it back again. So on that area, I also added extra 1 inch to it. I added 1 inch for the stitching, that's for the folding of the shirt and that area. So that is it for this. And the next thing to do now is to work on the back. So this is the back. It's the same thing as the front. I have already drafted it just so that we can save time. After drafting out the back, same way we have the front, I'm going to modify the shoulder line of the front and back so it gives it that overlapping effect in front. You see, when you see a shirt pattern, you discover that the back kind of comes forward at the front of the shirt. The shoulder line is not sitting directly on the shoulder, it kind of moves a little bit forward on the front panel of the shirt. So that's what I'm going to modify right now. So what you would do is to take your front panel and you're going to be marking 1 inch across. Now let me say this, there are different techniques on how to get this done. You must not necessarily work with the technique that I'm working with, but over time I've discovered that this technique works for me. It's easy and simple and straight to the point. So once you're done drafting your pattern, just grab the front panel for a shirt pattern. Grab the front panel, mark out 1 inch at the top of the shoulder line, and once you mark it out, you cut it out. Okay, like what I have just done on this pattern. I've cut out the front panel, the 1 inch that I marked out on the front panel. So I'm going to attach it at the shoulder line of the back. And to do this, I'm going to be attaching them together with a tape. So here I have with me a sellotape. I'm going to sellotape this down. Then I will take the 1 inch that I cut out from the front panel, and I'm going to align it with the shoulder of the back panel, ensure that they are properly aligned, and then use the tape to secure the two together. So this way you have successfully made the front and the back pattern longer on that area by 1 inch. So when you now join these two together, it will kind of overlap, it will kind of move forward towards the front panel. I hope you get it. So here I am done attaching them now. I've attached the 1 inch that I cut out from the front onto the back shoulder line, and this is it. Remember that I didn't add a stitching allowance at the shoulder. So after you have joined them together, then you can now go ahead and add a stitching allowance at the shoulder of the front and also at the shoulder of the back. So here is what we have side by side, the front and the back. By the time you stitch, it will fall forward, and this is what it will look like. Your pattern will still align at the sides and in front. Okay, so now we can move on to drafting the collar for this pattern. So we are going to be working on the collar now. So for us to draft the collar, you are going to need to measure your neckline for the front and the back. So what I'm doing right now is to measure out the neckline of the back without the sewing allowance. Okay, so place your tape on the center back and you're going to measure out what you have on that area without the sewing allowance at the shoulder. So for the front, you're going to fold in the facing for the button extension. Then we are going to fold in 1 inch for the facing of the button extension. Then you're going to leave 1 inch because the collar is going to have to run to that area as well. So you're going to measure out from that 1 inch button extension up to the shoulder line without the sewing allowance. So ensure that you do not measure your sewing allowance included in this. Otherwise, if you do that, you are going to have a wider neckline that does not fit the pattern. So after measuring the front and back, I got the value. I had 4.5 inch for the back and 4.75 inch for the front. I added both values and I had 8.75. So here I have a clean sheet of paper. On this paper, I'm going to mark out a straight line on the paper. So this will be for the collar. So this straight line I've marked out. I'm going to take the value of what I have for both front and back, and I'm going to be placing it on the line that I've just marked out. So the 8.75 that I've got as the value for measuring the front neckline and the back neckline, I'm going to place it on the paper. Then I'm going to get the midpoint of that value and also place a mark right there as well. So I've gotten the midpoint, I've placed a mark at where the midpoint is at. The next thing I'm going to do is to extend both corners of the collar. Okay, so extend both sides of this collar. So I've extended one of the side upward with a straight line, and I'm going to take 1.5 inch for the collar stand. So you can do lower than 1.5, you can do 1 inch, you can do 1.25, depending on how wide you want the collar stand to be. So I've taken 1.5 inch across. So at the other side of the collar, I've also extended the line. Now I've marked out 1.5 inch across these two borders, and then I'm going to use my ruler to square it out. Okay, so we're going to use a ruler now to square out this 1.5 that we have just marked on our paper. Now after squaring that out, the midpoint, we are also going to draw a line to indicate the midpoint of this collar. So from the lower line, you're going to go up by 0.75, and from the second line, you're going to also go up by 0.75. So after you've done this, you take your curve ruler, you are going to connect these 2 points to the center line, to the midpoint of the center line. So that way we've created a curve for the collar. Already you know that your neck is not straight, so it needs to be curved. So taking 0.75 on both angle and then connecting it to the center line is what is going to allow the collar to sit nicely on your neck. So you're going to take your ruler now, take the curve end, and then you're going to connect from those points to meet the midpoint of the paper. So after that is done, you're going to mark out a slanted line towards the corner there. Just mark out like a 90-degree angle towards that corner. And then from the top, you're going to just blend in with a curve to indicate that button extension that we have on our shirt. So I'm using my free hand to just curve out, to create a curve at the top there to indicate the curve for the button extension at that area. So after that is done, you go back to the first edge of your paper. That is where the center is going to be, because this is going to be on fold. You're going to go up by 0.5 inch, and we're going to mark dash lines to connect to that curve that we just marked on our collar. So just create dash lines all the way to the curve that we've marked out on the collar. When you get to that curve, you're going to stop. Okay, now coming down to the lower part of the collar, you're going to take the button extension you have on your front. You're going to mark that value on the lower part. Then you're going to square it out to touch the curve you have on your pattern. So for the button extension I had on my front, I had 1 inch button extension. So that is what I marked at the lower part of this collar, and then I extended it upward towards the curve. Now from that line, now you're going to draw a straight line, perpendicular line that is straight enough so that we can create the collar fly. So from there, you're also going to just mark out another 0.5 inch upward, and from these new straight lines that you have just marked, now you're going to connect it with a curve to touch the curve of the collar. So just pay attention and watch what I'm doing closely. I've connected this new straight line that I've marked at the top after the dash line to meet the curve that I have on my button extension. So after that is done, now you go back to do your collar fly. So for the collar fly, I'm going to go ahead and extend the line if it's not extended properly. I've extended my lines again. Then for the collar stand, I'm going to take 2 inches. 2 inches is what I'm going to mark across this collar, and then I'm going to connect them together. After marking out 2 inches, connecting them together, now at that top where we've marked out 2 inches at the top, we're going to go out by 0.75 so that we can give the collar that standing effect, that sharp effect it usually have at the neck area. So after coming out by 0.75, I'm going to also mark out a 90 degrees angle line towards that area, and you can see what we have running at that collar stand. We have that pointed effect on that side. So right here, I'm just making sure that all of my pointed edges are straightened out. Then after that is done, you can go ahead now and cut out this pattern. So right here, I'm going to be cutting out this pattern. If you're a beginner, I hope you understand this explanation. I hope you understand this illustration. Just watch the video carefully and I'm sure you would understand. So right now, what I'm doing is to cut out the collar. I'm going to be cutting out the collar band and also the collar stand. So for the extension you have at the collar stand, you can do any kind of design that you want in that area. Okay, you can do whatever kind of design you want in that area. Whatever kind of collar design you're going for, you can modify it on the collar stand. So after that is cut out, this is what I have. You can see that one side of the collar is straight. That part is going to be on fold. Now moving on to the sleeve. So I have my sleeve pattern already. I have a video on how to draft a sleeve pattern. This is what my sleeve looks like. So the length of the sleeve is 24 inches. Because we are going to be adding a cuff to the sleeve, I'm going to cut out 2 inches from this sleeve. Okay, so you can see towards the wrist, I've cut out 2 inches. I've marked out 2 inches on my sleeve, and I'm going to be cutting that out. So because we cut out that 2 inches, you discover that the sleeve is going to have excess at that area, and for a shirt you need to have that excess so that when you are attaching the cuff, you're going to be pleating that excess. So what I'm doing now is to draft the cuff for the sleeve. So I've measured out what I have on my cuff, on my sleeve wrist. So the value that I got for my sleeve wrist was 9 inches. Now on a separate sheet of paper, I've marked out a straight line. So 9 inches is what I'm going to be placing on this paper. Okay, so go ahead and mark out 9 inches on your paper on the straight line. Now I'm going to use 2.5 inch for the width of this cuff. So I'm extending the line upward, then I'm marking out 2.5 inch for the width of the cuff. So because it's a shirt, you might need it to gather up a little bit more if you want to. But if you're going for a more fitted silhouette, you might just leave it at 2 inches. But I decided to add extra half an inch to my sleeve curve, and this is it. Just draw a rectangle shape, and then you can modify the top like I have just done, and that is all for the cuff. Then I'm going to be cutting out this cuff. So this cuff is what I'm going to be using for my shirt sleeve. So right here, I've cut out the cuff. I've done the design that I want for the cuff, and this is it. So this is my sleeve now. This is the cuff. This is the collar. What I'm doing right now is to label all of the parts so that when I am ready to transfer this onto my fabric, I know exactly what goes where. So this is the sleeve, this is the cuff, this is the collar stand and the collar band. This is the front panel of my shirt pattern. This is the back as well. If you enjoyed this video to this point, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video, which is going to be the sewing part of this video. We are going to use this pattern to make a 2-piece. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Stay blessed. Bye.